Indeed, viewers, you just heard the Congress party in Karnataka there saying that more than 1,000 raids are going to rain down upon us over the next few days because the centre is misusing the ED and the CBI, in short, the agencies. Well, viewers, for a while now, a whole ecosystem that speaks up for the opposition in the country has been claiming that the agencies are being misused by the Modi government to go after those who dare to dissent, who dare to disagree with it, who dare to criticize its actions. Campaign against the government by questioning the impartiality of the agencies reached the Supreme Court. 14 opposition parties, led by leaders who have been or are being investigated by the Enforcement Directorate or the CBI for irregularities and other crimes, had filed a plea before the Supreme Court. The plea called upon the Apex Court to frame guidelines to ensure that the powers of the agencies are fettered. Yes, viewers, that they are fettered, especially in the matter of challenging the grant of bail to the accused. They wanted bail to be made the norm and jail the exception, especially in cases of non-violent crimes. They wanted a further relaxation of bail conditions in money laundering cases that attract the PMLA, citing the right to life and liberty under the Constitution. Additionally, they argued that if more than 6 months were remaining in the conclusion of a trial, the accused should be granted bail. Basically, the opposition believes that the agencies put you through a process that is as bad as the punishment, if not worse, just to deter you from taking on the government. But viewers, much to the disappointment of the ecosystem and the 14 opposition parties, the Supreme Court has today refused to entertain the plea filed seeking relief and guidelines, directions. In fact, the Supreme Court was quite scathing, forcing petitioners to withdraw the plea. Let me walk you through some of these observations that have been made by the Supreme Court. First observation was straight. Can't issue special guidelines for political leaders because they can't claim higher immunity than common citizens. In other words, viewers, the law is equal for everyone. Netas can't have special guidelines against arrest, which stands to reason, viewers. In fact, if anything, the bar, one would assume, I'm not speaking for the Supreme Court, should be higher for them. Nonetheless, the fourth observation the Supreme Court made was that the Supreme Court can't issue general directions without specific facts. If you believe that the agencies are being misused, come with specific facts that prove this point. Also, it says that the remedy for all your problems is not in the court, it's in the political space. Go figure it out amongst yourselves in the political space. Now, let us in fact take you one by one through the SC's response to the accusations and pleas. Let's break it down for you, viewers. Let's break it down for you. Let me quickly explain to you what was exactly said and what has not been said. And I just want to go over these points. In the petition, viewers, what do we know? That the CBI and the ED deployed selectively, chilling the effect on the opposition. The counter to this was given by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says this kind of a charge, which is more political, the answer lies in the political space, seek it there, not the courts. The other charge was that the rise in the use of coercive criminal processes against the opposition. The Supreme Court says we need to have facts in a case or group of cases. come to us with this detailed information. The petition says clear trend of using ED raids as a tool of harassment. The counter was from the Enforcement Directorate that only 2.98% of total laundering cases have been filed against politicians. The petition claimed that the attempt to completely crush political dissent was being made by misusing the ED. The ED says that only 176 of 5,906 cases are against current and ex-MPs and MLAs. The petition said conscious weaponization of an entire branch of law. The counter from the Supreme Court was cannot issue guidelines without case-specific facts. The petition says only 23 convictions under PMLA secured as of now. The Supreme Court says, well, that's not out of the ordinary. The rate of conviction in India is dismal in general. Well, the opposition was represented by Abhishek Manu Singhvi, a senior politician and also, of course, a very senior lawyer who had this to say about the court order. Listen in, viewers.
They ultimately did not entertain it, but did not express a single opinion on the merits. 95% of all cases involve opposition leaders as far as the political sphere is concerned. That, according to us, skews democracy, makes democracy one-sided.
Well, outside of the court complex, the BJP and the Congress, viewers, went for each other. We know how that's been playing out. We'll give you an example of that just shortly in our debate. But clearly the Supreme Court hasn't agreed with the opposition. Instead, seems to have backed them just like the Prime Minister did himself recently, backed the agencies, that is. Listen to what the Prime Minister had to say a few days ago.
जिनके खिलाफ एक्शन ले रहे हैं वो बहुत ताकतवर लोग हैं। बरसों बरस तक उन्होंने भी एक इकोसिस्टम बनाया है। इकोसिस्टम अक्सर उनके काले कारनामों को कवर देने के लिए, आप जैसी संस्थाओं की छवि बिगाड़ने के लिए एक्टिव हो जाता है। एजेंसी पर ही हमला बोल दो, ये लोग आपका ध्यान भटकाते रहेंगे, लेकिन आपको अपने काम पर फोकस रखना है। और मैं आपको भरोसा दिलाता हूं, देश आपके साथ है, कानून आपके साथ है, देश का संविधान आपके साथ है। आज देश में करप्शन के खिलाफ कार्रवाई करने के लिए राजनीति की इच्छा शक्ति में कोई कमी नहीं है।
Viewers, as I said, the Supreme Court, in a sense, endorsing what the Prime Minister said, not that it was expected to and not that it does, but there's a remarkable similarity there, suggesting that the CBI and the ED need to get on with their work because the law of the land and the Constitution are with them. Let's open this up. Mahesh Jethmalani, Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament, is here with us. Mr. Jethmalani, let me ask you some very pointed questions. Naturally, today, you're going to feel vindicated, and I'm not going to take away that from you, but there are still some questions that need to be answered. 5,000 plus cases lodged by the Enforcement Directorate, but the number of concluded trials is just 25. And therefore, the opposition says, look, once you are under fire from this lot, they will take you, they'll haul you over the coals. At the end of the day, nothing will come of it. The process is worse than the punishment. Does that doubt, that niggling concern, is that addressed today or not?
Well, I mean, I don't think that was an issue today. What was an issue today was a claim or a demand by the opposition, advocated by Dr. Manu Singhvi, that I mean, it was almost not just a misconceived, but an audacious decision to suggest that somehow or the other they should be in a privileged position. Public servants should be in a privileged position, and particularly political public servants in the matter of bail. Now, the court rightly rebuffed that. It is absurd for them to suggest, because they've been through the grind, they've been through the legal grind, they've been arrested, and they're so privileged that they've been given early hearings, their bail applications are being disposed of fast. They may not be successful, but the entire judiciary, I mean, there are different magistrates, different sessions court judges, different special courts, different high courts, different benches of the Supreme Court, hearing individual matters of all these opposition politician accused. So are we saying that every judge who's heard this case rejected their bail applications? And by the way, none of these opposition politicians whose cases are pending, that large number, have dared to ask for a quashing of their case, that the whole case against them is false, that there is no evidence, that it's a mala fide case. You may mouth this in public, you may say this in media, but you have to put your mouth before the courts. What you mouth in public is not enough. I feel, Rahul, that the opposition has basically become victim to their own hype. I mean, they started believing their own propaganda regarding the mala fides and the bias of the investigating agencies, so much so that they, having been rebuffed by all the individual courts who are dealing on a day-to-day basis with their cases, they now try to club together everything. This is a really ingenious kind of strategy.
So let me ask you,
on your individual cases where the facts have been dealt with at length.
I appreciate the point that you made. I think the second point, that none of the opposition netas have dared to ask for a quashing of the case. Of course, I don't have the exact facts, but I do know that when the Gandhis, for example, approached the court saying that, look, quash our cases, that didn't quite happen. In fact, they're out on bail. And that, and there are several other cases that, you can see on your screens. But let me ask you the second question, because it kind of flows from the first. Several cases, and I'm talking specifically about the Enforcement Directorate, don't end in a prosecution complaint either. In fact, 81% have not yielded a charge sheet. Now, the reason I'm focusing on the ED is because the opposition says that this is the agency that most often goes after us, citing corruption, etc., etc. And while corruption is a great cancer and the public despises individuals in places of power that are corrupt, we get slandered, but at the end of the day, only about 19% of us will face any consequence. The rest of us will have gone through this process without, any charge sheet, and we'd be dragged through our image, be dragged to the mud.
Well, there is some truth in that, and that is because delay in our legal system is endemic. By the time cases finally come up for trials, A, they've lost their sting, B, witnesses have disappeared, right? And there's been a greater scam. So, that's everything is just for is momentary. So that is true, that conviction rates are low. And there's a reason for that. Our entire justice system is slow. That needs changing. But that doesn't detract from the fact that there is a prima facie case against all of them. There's prima facie truth
in this,
both the allegations
the statistic
and the
I pointed out
backs up that there is a prima facie case.
Fair enough. But I'm not talking about the conviction rate here. I'm talking about the cases that the investigations that end up in the filing of a charge sheet. Only 19% do. 81% don't. And that, I think, is a big number, isn't it?
Well, look, I'm not quite sure about that statistic, but even if that is true, I don't know, are we talking about the ED? Because most of the CBI cases do end up, the majority of the CBI cases, the Enforcement Directorate, look, they are predicate offences. Ultimately, what happens is sometimes the predicate offence is found either quashed or there's an acquittal or a discharge, right? Then the ED case goes. So ED rates will, charge sheets will largely depend upon the predicate offence. There's no predicate offence which stands the test of the courts. Then the ED offence goes as well. But in all these cases, right, which have been filed post 2014, I don't think the ending up in a charge sheet argument holds at all. All of them, the cases which Abhishek Singh brought to court, right? The opposition cases, I think charge sheets have been filed in the vast majority of them.
Okay.
The overall picture from previous regimes may be altogether different. But post 2014, look at that statistic. To my knowledge, all the public servants involved in cases of either of the CBI for prevention of corruption or the ED for money laundering, all of them have ended up in charge sheets or complaints.
Okay. Well, I'll defer to you on that because I don't have facts exactly on this, but I'll take your word for it. Thank you, Mr. Jethmalani. I think you've very eloquently summed up at least the BJP's position on this. Whether it will be bought by the opposition or not, let's see. Let's open this up.